Hello, hello, hello. We welcome you to our online book club called Reading River. Every week we go live right here on YouTube to chat about a few chapters. No spoilers ahead of schedule, no pressure, just good books and great conversation. And whether you're a longtime reader or just getting started, you're welcome here. Now this genre for the group is called Noire because we will be covering books written from Black authors. I do want to start by introducing our panel. We got Sheen, we got Debbie, we got Toya, and we got me, Nini. The book that we're covering is God is a Black Woman by Dr. Christina Cleveland. We're going to be discussing chapters 9 and 10. If you haven't caught up that far, no worries. Just play the other ones and then get back to us. We'll record this too. Let's go ahead and get started. Okay. Well, first, let me say hi to the ladies. Hi, ladies. How y'all doing? I missed y'all.
Hello there.
Missed y'all. So, I was actually feeling these chapters. And to be honest, I think we may be able to speed through these too. But I did like a lot of things that she said. So, to kind of go back in the book, it sounds like she's going through her transition. Well, I should say transition, but kind of going through her murky waters, I'd like to say, because there's a lot of ties that she may have to sever, and it looks like she's going in a lot of detail about it, so I'm kind of excited to read. Chapter 9 starts off by saying, "She who loves by letting go." In the beginning, and I'm on page 123 on my digital book, she talks about this liberation. I like actually how she puts it, because she talks about multiple plantations. So she says, but as I continue toward liberation, I realized that money and platform were the least of my worries. As I journeyed on, I began to awaken the truth that the single plantation escape is a myth. We never escape one plantation. And to escape one plantation is to commit to escaping 1,000 subsequent plantations. For once we move beyond what is currently enslaving us, we begin to see other enslavements. And with each enslavement we are presented with the opportunity to make another difficult choice. Do I keep moving or do I fall back? And I thought that was pretty interesting, and you ladies can jump in if you want, about how she's kind of dismembering a lot, or how everything was going to, this was big, because I was wondering if she was going to get into the conversations of dismembering or severing ties with everything, because this was wrapped in so much. This was wrapped with her parents. This was wrapped in religion. This is, like her whole state of being, her job, everything. But she really goes into a lot of detail. She even talks about, she also ties into the subset where it's can't stop, won't stop, even for family. She starts out by making like a contrast to this book or that she was reading. Looks like John Bunyan was quoting it. She says that Bunyan tells a story of a man named Christian who decides to embark on an epic pilgrimage in pursuit of truth or a true liberating life. At the start of the book, we find Christian so overtaken by his urgency to begin his journey that he is literally running out of his house and away from all he knows. Bunyan narrates, "The man began to run. He hadn't run far from his own door when his wife and children noticed what he was doing and cried out to him, 'Come back, come home.' The man put his fingers in his ears and ran on. Life, life, eternal life." Now, I thought that was interesting because I like how she tied it to her escaping, I guess. But if I was just to read that without any context, I would just call him a deadbeat, because this man literally was just running out from his wife and children. So I'm glad she kind of tied those things together. She also says that a Christian story has been stirring in her since she read it as a child. And even then, I related to Christian and and wondered if I too would need to run away from my family. A good girl in a violently patriarchal family. At the time, I didn't consciously understand how abusive my family really was. So she's hitting a lot of dots, dotting a lot of I's. Before I go to this other subsection, did anybody have anything to chime in on, or?
I did. I wanted to retouch on the Christian story
Sure.
or the story about Christian. Pretty much, I found that to be. I didn't really see I thought that to be a bad example, just for the simple fact that you shouldn't want to compare yourself to your journey to one of somebody who would abandon their wife and children, just take off running because they heard a voice in their head telling them to take off. And you hear your kids yelling for you and your wife in the background telling you to stay. You just keep walking away. This takes me back once again to the whole you comparing yourself to Jason Bourne. You pick a bad examples. Your journey, to me, it seems like the comparisons that you're making are not very good ones or something that you want to relate to. I guess in the sense of kind of like trying to make comparisons in what you're going through and what you're seeking.
That's a good point, Sheen. Because you did. I'm sorry, I don't mean to laugh. It's just that.
I mean, what are you doing? He's a deadbeat, man. He just left his wife and his freaking kids. Are you kidding me? How does that compare to your journey of you leaving the religion that you grew up in and basically kind of turning your back on those principles that your mother and your father believe in? Those are two totally different things, two totally different scenarios.
Maybe, she's. I'm sorry.
You call me when y'all want to get serious again. On that one, I'm just going ahead and mute. You call me when y'all get serious, okay? That was ridiculous.
Fair. No, I don't mean to laugh, but I'm not disagreeing. I think maybe she, like how she's viewing things, maybe just a tad different than like sometimes you try to fill in some parts with the book, right? And then but I think obviously she did kind of just see through that, because she said, like, as a child, this kind of sat in her head for a minute. You know what I'm saying? I think she says, even then, I related to Christian and wondered if I too would need to run away from my family. And she said it's been stirring in her since I read it as a child. So maybe she's one of those.
Even then, I'm sorry. Even then, come on, let's be for real. And let's take it a step further. She just gave deadbeats everywhere another excuse to add to the list. A voice in my head told me I need to leave my wife and kids. Just put your fingers in your ears and keep on running. Don't even listen to them. Come on.
At least thought I would. I'm kind of glad I wasn't crazy when I first read it. I was like, to me that sounds like a deadbeat. But I was like, well, maybe. I was like, well, I mean, I guess she sees the liberation in the story.
Yes. Yes.
That's hilarious.
Come on, man. That's a terrible
analogy.
Terrible analogy. All right. He finally got his liberation from his wife and children. Oh my God.
That's hilarious.
Oh my goodness. The children too.
And the kids. Oh, baby.
And the children.
That's hilarious.
Oh my goodness. All right. That was all I had to say about that.
That was a good point.
Yeah.
I thought it was me to a certain extent, and I was like, well, I mean, I'm just happy the woman is running up out of there. So whatever it takes for her to do that, I'll take it. But I'm sorry. Before I go on, did anyone else have anything to comment on, or?
I have nothing.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this. Let me ask you this, Debbie. Did you agree with Sheen on that one, or are we?
With everything that's gone on in this woman's life, it's just not surprising that
Mm,
the comparisons that she makes are
Right.
totally off.
Right.
sorry, y'all are
That's
cracking me.
true. So true.
Y'all cracking me up today. My bad. So,
And
No,
I mean,
truthfully, let's be
I
truthful.
literally knew that Sheen would come in with that. So you did
Come
not
on,
disappoint.
y'all.
You did
Come
not
on, y'all.
disappoint. So I totally appreciate you for bringing it to our attention.
On everything I love, out of every comparison, out of every analogy that you can possibly make, why
That's
are
what
we
she would.
choosing? Come on, man.
Yeah. So again, everything that she's gone through thus far and on this journey
Right.
has not surprised me at all. And I knew she would bring it to our attention. So I
Oh,
appreciate
goodness.
you for that.
Pete, you are very welcome. I am sorry that had to be brought. Okay. Absolutely. Read. I remember I was just like reading this, like, what? So when
I
you
literally
finally
read that with you in thought. And I was like,
yeah,
she's gonna have a
right.
field day with this one.
oh
I
Lord.
made a note, Sheen field day.
Oh my goodness. Truly, 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 like, y'all, come on, man. We gotta
That's
have
hilarious.
I feel like I somehow I have like a little ice in my heart. I don't have that much ice in my heart. My God, my goodness. Okay, no, 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 no.
No,
But
no.
you're right.
I'm sorry.
You're right. Absolutely right, Debbie. You read like you read so many of these examples that she's laid out in
Mm-hmm.
the previous chapters that yeah, this is not. It's not surprising. No.
Not at all. I actually read as I continue to go through. I'm like, I wonder what's next.
Oh goodness.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's not going to make sense.
That's that's funny. That's funny. Well, I'm glad you said that. That's that was interesting. Okay. Let's see. So she starts the next part of the chapter said called Fear and Control, two sides of the same coin. And in this part, she talks about like spiritual leadership. And she says, growing up, spiritual leadership was all about authority and control. For people striving for membership in white male God's tiny, terrifying circle of acceptability, leadership often involves policing people's beliefs and actions. Since everyone is petrified of being ashamed or being shamed and excommunicated for failing to adhere to white male God's impossible standards, they devote all their energy to controlling themselves and the people they care about. And then she goes into priestly policing. And I thought this was interesting because she kind of gets into what I was wondering about was like as she was growing up how certain conversations went. So she kind of went more in depth than I thought she would. So, but I was here for it. Well, kind of here for it. But she talks about, and I'm on page 125. She says this system of priestly policing is exemplified in the the purity movement, because I'm stumbling all on my words today. Born into a conservative black Christian family in the 1980s, I experienced the brunt of purity culture, one of white male God's most cunning doctrines of fear and control. And when I was 15, I kissed my first boy, a true sweetie named David. And with hours of learning of my kiss, my parents, stricken with fear, somberly presented me with a purity ring. The ring was technically a gift, but it felt like a threat because it was accompanied with an admonition to save myself for marriage. Rather than celebrating the beautiful milestone experience of the first kiss and inviting me into a discussion about how I wanted to relate to my body in this this new phase of physical intimacy, they sought to control me. And lucky for them, they had lots of help. But this kind of walks through like just sex in general, especially as she's growing up. And like I said, I was wondering how a lot of those conversations went because, and she also states it. She says, you know, she's having these conversations. She says, she didn't want to end up like being shamed like the young pregnant preacher's daughter that we talked about in the previous chapter. She said, I knew what my faith would be if I violated the rules, but the rules were blurry. In white male God's antibody culture, we never talked about what actually constitutes as sex. And then it even gets to the part where her mom, Lord have mercy, I'm on page 126, where she says, in her 20s, this is being Dr. Christina, in her 20s, in my 20s, when a loving consensual relationship with an older man ended, my mom told me that throughout the length of my relationship, she had repeatedly experienced a burning sensation in her vagina area. And I'm like, Mom, you doing the most. Like, Mom,
The most.
you doing the most. And to be absolutely honest with you, and if I didn't have respect, if she didn't have respect, she should have been like, listen, Mom, if you burning in that area, it ain't got nothing to do with me. Like, matter of fact, I need to pray for you, sweetie, because, I mean, that's a whole lot. If I to tell her that, but it makes sense, though. All of these things make sense. So that's why I was so wondering how this conversation goes. And before I keep moving on, did anybody have anything to add?
Just a deep sigh on that, because I don't understand how your daughter could be in a relationship yet you having tingling sensations.
I guess that's sleep.
Maybe I misunderstood, but I don't get that, period. Like, why are you tingling?
I don't know. And I mean, when you look back, like as a child, like for her to have this kind of hindsight is very interesting. Because I want, like when she put this in the book, I wonder, you know, was she like, now Mom, you doing way too much. Like what now? Why were you having all these sensations? Like what you need to tell me? But I don't know.
I mean, that would have been her. That, like she said, that was her first adult relationship, and when it ended, if her mom told her that they didn't have the open dialogue, I'm still assuming that they still did not have that open dialogue where she could say, well, Mom, what exactly do you mean by that? And clearly the conversation did not go there, because I think more clarification would have been given at that point.
No, but Debbie, you spoke on something right there, because you know, when I was reading it, it made me think about like when I was young and like my parents tried to have those conversations, or some did and some lack thereof. And like it was blurry, you know, like there's a part in this book where Dr. Cleveland, she wasn't sure which was which. You know, I guess if we had like an analogy of like first base, second base, third base, she was like, well, what does this constitute? Like heavy petting? What base would that be on? You know, am I drawing the line? And she says it. She says, consequently, I never knew if I crossed the line in my romantic relationships, and she was plagued with fear and shame until years later when she broke free, because she didn't really know how to teeter the line or how to feel comfortable. You know what I mean? So that sucks, and I actually understand it, because I have like more conservative people in my family where if you even kind of embark upon those conversations, the rebuttal to that is you just don't do it, and then you like do what, and it's like that, and it's like what's that, this, and it's like well what, and they say well you just don't do it, that, or this. And that's kind of the conversation. So you don't ask, you know, well, can I kiss? Can I do, well, what if it's above the belt? What if it's below the belt? You didn't really ask those conversations. Now, I did have like some parents, like, or on my dad's side or whatever, who was, I mean, too free. They were doing too free. Like you ran away from the conversation. It was too much. But in those blurry moments, you didn't really know to ask. So I actually understood where she was coming from, because that's just a blur if because you don't know the questions to ask if you don't know the questions.
Exactly, because she kissed a boy and then got a
Right.
promise ring. So she probably thinking, "Oh gosh, I'm pregnant now."
Yeah. And then her parents are giving her jewelry. Like, they
Oh
don't feed
yes,
her.
like
They giving her jewelry.
yeah, I don't know. And then as an adult to then finalize it with not even going into conversation about. I really was like, I'm praying that you not having sex or doing this and doing that. It's just like I had tingling sensations.
Sorry.
I just,
Oh,
I don't know.
I
I don't
know.
know.
I I agree with Nene. I think that it kind of is a little more. Just depends. Like I guess like how you grew up in that. So I was able to kind of relate, but not again to the extent of that she went to. Because the same here, there was like zero conversation about yeah, boyfriend was a I knew what a boyfriend was, but a lot of what I learned came from like my cousins on my other side or TV friends that was a little more free than I was, or a lot more free. So I definitely could relate to that too, because it was zero conversation
Mm-hmm.
about like boys and intimacy. You just did not do it, and you did not dare to ask the questions about it as well, which was crazy too, in that aspect. But never to that extreme. But I think sometimes, and it kind of go back to her of like depending on like your relationship with God and like your belief, where sometimes parents would use that to their advantage to put fear. So I kind
Mm-hmm.
of was like, did her mama really have that, or did she just kind of say that to her and use that whole spiritual thing? Because I felt like at times
Right.
my mom may have done that as well, but not to that extreme,
Mm-hmm.
by no way.
Right.
But I definitely, I just kind of question like, was her mom telling the truth? Like, was she
Right.
told her that obviously, but was like she telling the truth or was it just a way to put more fear?
Yeah, like, was it her mom was that her policing method? Saying she
Right,
tingling.
right.
Man, these parents are a trip. I don't know what to say.
I mean, whatever it was once again very difficult to read.
Mm-hmm.
The burning sensation, the whole that was
Right.
just once again, you took us down the street that I told you to go left and you just went. I don't even know, man. You just went vroom and just drove right into the damn wall on that one. That made no sense. What? So I mean, come on, man.
It didn't. Like,
Ridiculous. The-
I
I,
don't
I
know
mean,
the choice of how she just chose to describe that. Like, I don't know.
it's some things that you just need to. I always feel maybe some things you just take to the grave. That might have been one of them right there. Let's just go ahead and take that one, and we don't need to let nobody else know that because I don't want people thinking, you know, things about my mother, or you know what I'm saying,
I
like
got you.
it's just that was very 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 uncomfortable to read. I will say though that at least she felt some kind of comfort in telling her parents about her first kiss.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know for myself. I mean, I felt like that would be like grounds for getting them hands or that belt put on you,
No.
and then
Girl, yes.
punishment, and then a whole bunch of host of other stuff too.
Right.
Even though I feel like on this end, even though my parents may not have been as religious as Dr. Chris's parents, it doesn't mean that they were not as strict or even more strict when it came to me and kind of like my sexuality and me dealing with boys.
That's real.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
So, I mean, that's just taking it away from the context of, from a religious standpoint. It don't matter. I feel like, you know, a lot of girls
Yeah.
have are, regardless whether your parents are religious or not, are just going to be strict on you. Or when we were growing up, I guess I should say, a lot of us went through a lot of, very strict, very, very regulated rules,
Mm.
and not just within
Mm-hmm.
your own family household, but within our Black community.
Yes,
Right.
that's a good
You know what I'm
point.
saying?
That's a good point, Shane.
On how we should do, how we should interact, what we
Mm-hmm.
should do, which the emphasis is not placed on Black boys.
That's a great point, Sheen. Man,
It
y'all
is.
cooking
It
tonight.
is.
Y'all cooking tonight because you're right. Because Dr. Chris describes it as priestly policing, but this goes beyond, like you said, religion. This is just policing. This,
Yeah.
Yeah.
this is policing within your home, policing within your community, and then it goes further than that, policing in your culture. So, and you're right. There's no kind of leeway, grace. Um, Man, that was a good point. Thank you for that. Because you're right. It goes beyond just religion. This is just policing women and black women, especially black girls in general.
And I'm sure, like we can go through other, cultures as well too, that go through the same thing, but
Absolutely.
we're not talking about, the focus isn't on those cultures. It's just specifically what we're talking about within our own culture.
Right.
And when I mean Black community, Black people, Black community, I mean, don't even matter the region. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like there's a huge emphasis on that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's a great point. Great point. It also, as far as Dr. Chris, though, it seems like it also manifests in going through her, because she also speaks about self-loathing. She says, it was self-loathing that kept me chained to this abusive priest model of morality. After engaging in sexual activity, I'd be so racked with shame that I would circle back to the rules and try to contort myself into something that would be acceptable to white male God and his priests. She said, I constantly feared that I would be publicly shamed and cast out like the young, unmarried, pregnant woman at my childhood church. And then she goes into saying, being trapped in self-loathing, the only thing I knew to do was mimic the fear control pattern that had been modeled for me. And when I feared for the safety and purity of others, I used shame and fear-mongering to police their behaviors. As a college student under the spell of white male God, I believed that to be a spiritual leader meant to constantly point out my peers' waywardness, hold people accountable, and generally lord over them. I remember summoning a group of my friends to the dorm room late one night in order to drop self-righteous shame bombs on them. And it was my opinion that they were drinking too much, or dating the wrong people, or not taking their morality seriously enough. And I was afraid that they were going down the wrong path. And like my parents, I allowed my fear to energize my need to control these friends. Apparently, it was my place to chastise them and assault them with my moral standings. I was white male God in blackface. And it's funny how she writes how that circles back around. It's like, because she's been controlled or kind of shamed and controlled, she was seeking to control others. And I like how she touched on that, about how sometimes things just, kind of work in a circle. But I also like, and I'm on page 128, and feel free to stop me if there's some parts that I may have missed. But she touched on how she's starting this new communication with her parents. For example, on that page 128, she says, I struggled to speak my truth, and my parents struggled to understand why my truth now differed from theirs. But over time, with the help of therapy and a deeper connection to the sacred Black feminine within me, I learned to communicate new boundaries by politely but firmly saying things like, Mom and Dad, I'm not going to discuss that topic with you, and I don't feel safe in that spiritual community, so I'm not going to attend that event with you. And I was like, okay, Dr. Chris, okay. Moving on to 129, she also says, with deep sorrow, I say to Dad, I know I'm moving in a direction that scares you. However, I've spent my whole life trying to anticipate, meet, and even exceed your needs and expectations. I'm not going back into that prison. And I thought that was interesting because I could only think of what that dad, if she said those words directly, which we'll assume that she did, that dad hearing, like, I don't want to go back into that prison. And like for us, like listening or like reading the book, yeah, you're right, it was a prison. It was a terrible prison. It wasn't like the comfy prison either. It wasn't like what they say, the Ghislaine Maxwell. It ain't like one of her prisons. It's like one of those really bad ones where you don't hardly eat and all that stuff. But I just keep thinking about like when her dad heard this, a man who does not believe, he believes this is the righteous way. I can only think about what he may have been thinking at that moment when she was saying that.
I mean, it probably was a multitude of emotions that he was going through, but I mean, it's hard for me to believe that shame wasn't one of them. Because could you imagine that you think that you're doing right by your kids, by your standards? You feel like I've done everything that I possibly can to show my kids how to live, the way that I feel is the right way to live. And they consider that I've just been raising them in a prison.
Yeah.
That has to be pretty, I don't even know disappointment is even enough. I just feel like there has to be some shame, just a little bit in there. Even if he feels like she is completely wrong, he doesn't agree with anything that she's saying. She's ungrateful, she's disrespectful, she's this and that. When you get alone and you sit, by yourself with your thoughts, I know there has to be, a little bit of just a hint of shame that comes through.
Yeah. It had to be a hard day. It had to be a hard day having that conversation.
Well, the day needed to be had. I'm sorry. Look at what you put her through. So, you know what I'm saying? I mean, yeah.
Actually, I'm sorry. I didn't mean
as a parent, I could honestly say I would feel like that conversation is hard. It's a hard pill to swallow, but more so than not, I guarantee you, his immediate thoughts were, "Where did I fail? What did I do wrong?"
Right.
a lot.
Still not really.
I'm kidding.
Still not really considering his actions and why she's feeling like this. I guarantee you, he didn't go there.
I was just going to ask you. I was going to ask you that. Do you think that he sat down and pondered because I believe you're right. I believe he may have sat down and was like, where did I go wrong? But he's probably thinking, did I not whoop her enough?
Exactly. That's where his mind is going.
Right.
I guarantee that's where his mind
Sunday
went.
And Saturday.
Yeah. Yeah. What teachings did I not instill? Like, there's something I missed to cause her to go down. She's going down the wrong path.
Right. She's going.
So she's not seeing it exactly. He's like, I did everything right. She didn't pick up on something that I taught.
That's convenient. That's convenient.
Yeah. It's still I didn't get the stick enough.
Man, that's crazy. That's crazy. But no, that's a good point. Because I was wondering, I was like, I wonder how that went. She also ties in because it sounds like each.
Hold on, Nene, not to even cut it up, just to even elaborate on that more. I wonder what they're thinking reading this book.
Girl, stop.
Because I'm telling you right now, I have a big problem with my daughter if she put in there. If that last comment about her dating the older gentleman and feeling the burning sensation. Whoa. You had to put that in the book now.
Do you believe she got a call from her mama?
What call, man? Please don't show your hand too much. I'm pulling up. And she, mom was out of pocket for saying that. You know what I'm saying? Hey, if she said, I don't know. This is from her, from Dr. Chris's words. So we're gonna go by as if her mother,
Right.
hey, if she, even saying that, I mean, once again, it's just some things you just keep to yourself, okay? But could you imagine what they feel like reading this?
I couldn't. I would like to think that they didn't read it. I'd like to think that maybe this didn't fall in their circle yet. I mean, in a perfect world, they haven't read this book.
Somebody had to tell them, man, this book is out here. Come on.
I mean,
This don't, come on, man.
I would hope that if her parents are still alive, I would hope that she had a conversation with them about the journey that she's on and the information that she is going to include in the book.
I would like to think so.
Like, I don't want you don't have to read it if you don't want to, but this is what I am going to include because this is a part of my journey and a part of my healing. And this, in order for me to get to where I need to be or want to be, I'll need to include this. This is what I'm going to say.
Yeah.
You would think that's done, but
that sounds like that would have probably that sounds like that makes sense though. That sounds like she would have sat him down and was like, look. Okay, yeah, I probably don't want to read this. Like you just said, that makes sense to me though. That makes sense that's how that went down. But after she says that though, so let's assume that that's the conversation that happened because that makes perfect sense. Do you think they read it after that?
Come on, knowing
her parents, they probably did.
You think so? Oh goodness.
You gotta read it.
Yeah, because they're self-righteous.
Yep.
I wouldn't have read it. I
guarantee you, they don't agree with what she stated. Her story is not their story. They're not going to agree with that. Well, that didn't happen. We didn't do that.
So if we hear a book by Mr. Cleveland called "God is a Black Man," retaliate against this book, y'all want to read it?
Yes, and that's even like a conversation because what I continue to think about as we're reading is we no longer hear about the brother hasn't been mentioned since the tetherball.
Yes.
He hasn't been mentioned since.
Wait, D, I think we lost you.
Did he not give his consent?
Oh, you're right. Uh-oh. This is a part 2. Debbie, you're right. Because we haven't gotten, well, we're assuming, we don't know what's happening with the sister.
Right. She touched on the sister and the mental illness. We got to that part. Mm-hmm. But then we haven't heard, nothing more has been discussed about her. But unless I've missed something, I don't recall hearing about the brother since the tetherball scene.
You're right.
Technically, we haven't heard from the sister since chapter 1.
Mm-hmm.
Chapter 1 or 2 as well.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You're right. So I guess if we we go out and take a look, or we walking in a bookstore and we see God ain't no black woman, or we see something like that, then we'll know. We'll know there's a part 2 to this.
Now we'll know her father is the true hater that she has portrayed him to be in this book. If we see something out like that, that's some hating right there.
That's a level of petty that.
Yeah.
That's a level. That's King Petty right there. Like, I'm going to just, despite you, I'm just going to just write this book.
I mean, I've heard of this records, but this book's a books battle. Come on, y'all. Let's stop it.
Be like Ether or something.
Let's not take it there. I hope that's not the case. Good night, Almighty. But I also do hope that she did clear this book with her parents. Like, I hope she let them know that she was writing this.
Man. Well, I like to assume that she did. I like to assume that she did. She
I
also.
mean, that is barring if they are still, alive. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Well, we'll hope everything will work. We hope that everything worked out. Because for all we know, they could have just had a 360 after she shared more conversations with them. And we'll hope the best. We'll hope the best. But I liked how she talked about. She also talked about grieving, which I thought was important because all of these conversations and us thinking about who said what, the part that I'm glad that she put emphasis on is the grief and the loss. She also ties it in with this virgin warrior, this other Black Madonna. It looks like she visited a small tiny village of I'm hoping I'm saying this correctly, of Thurit, to visit the Black Madonna, who is famously known as the Virgin Warrior. She says in the beginning of that subset of that part of the chapter, she said, though I had begun speaking my truth, changing the DNA of a lifelong, enmeshed father-daughter relationship, it's easier said than done. For one, it involves a lot of grief and loss. I grieved when my dad and I became more and more distant as I asserted myself more, and I grieved when my dad seemed lost when I asked him to stop acting as my spiritual authority and instead embrace mutual adult friendship with me. She said, I grieved that I had to choose liberation over felt intimacy with my cherished parents. Oh. Oh. Well, that makes sense. But she also, as she kind of interwovens this conversation with about, this virgin warrior, and she goes into actually seeing and talking about this encounter, she says that as she relaxed into her gray, speaking about this Black Madonna that she saw in Therit, excuse me. She says, as I relaxed into her gray, I stopped unfairly expecting myself to perfectly finesse each step towards freedom with my parents. Even more so, I gave myself permission to clumsily create a new dance with my parents. I was better able to honor their humanity by giving them space to respond with similar clumsiness. They were on their own journey, and they needed the freedom to learn their dance steps at their own pace without me pushing them or colonizing the moral high ground. And though I continued to set boundaries and make choices that honored my dignity, I felt less of a need to control my parents or our relational dance. Instead, I began to savor the infrequent but priceless moments of connection while continuing to grieve the loss of felt intimacy. And all the while trusting that she, being the sacred Black feminine, she is right there in the gray with us, guiding us all toward love. And in the company of the virgin warrior, we love by letting go. Aww, I thought that was a good chapter. That was a good chapter. Before I go into 10, because I think 10 is pretty cool, and we can go ahead and wrap that on up. Did you ladies have anything to add before I move on into it?
No, I don't.
Not for me. I don't.
Toya, you good? Toya, did we lose you?
No, it's still says.
So what? Would you, Toya? Did we lose you?
Yeah, I think we did. It's only 3 on here now.
Oh no. Okay. Let's see. Well, we'll go ahead and go to 10, and then.
Oh my God, you just sound like the guy from Family Guy. Oh no, Bruce.
Oh, no.
She's back. She's back.
Oh, okay, we got you.
Toya, did we lose you? Huh? Wait. Okay.
Toya.
Oh. I think I saw her come back for a second and then we lost her again.
Okay. Let's see. So we'll go ahead and move on to part 10, and she'll probably just jump in. So this one starts off with God of White Women. And this, I can't lie, this is the kind of tea I like. and the reason why is because I like to see what goes on in this Duke Divinity School, because I like to see how she's kind of like navigating with this journey, and then all these little antics of her job, and how, you know, how things, how these little situations pop up. And she brings up a situation where, and this is wild, she talks about a male colleague, a white male colleague, and I'm starting on page 137. She says, she comes in, I opened my work email and was immediately assaulted by scores of messages from the Duke Divinity School faculty listserv. So she gets a bunch of emails, and it says, the real trouble began when it became clear that the novel that was authored by a white man was on the topic of black womanhood in America, written in first person, boo-boo. Not I know her, not this is her story, written in first person. The novel told the story of one particular black woman. This white male colleague had essentially colonized a black woman's voice and story. Girl, I was rolling. Because the first thing was, did he, you know, because some people may have gotten some kind of clearance or some kind of, you know, some kind of permission, and then kind of ran with it. But then it's like on that same page, or where I'm reading, it says, apparently the moral question of whether he, a white man, was authorized or qualified to share her black female story didn't trouble him. So it sounds like he didn't get clearance on any of it.
I mean, we are talking about the white male god.
Girl, stop. Girl,
But not even that. Is it really like a surprise? Think about it. I mean, same to be said for Steven Spielberg with The Color Purple.
ooh.
It's Alice Cooper's
Ooh.
The Color Purple. But, you know.
Well, you know, Actually, I'll push back on that one, because you are right. Steven Spielberg, he did do The Color Purple, but they asked him. I think it was like Whoopi Goldberg and Quincy Jones, or I think it was them two. They asked him. Huh?
And if we look deeper into the history of both of those individuals,
We're then again talking about the white male god.
male god, yeah, might as well. You just basically just mentioned her mother and her father, kind of like in some kind of sense of, you know, not in a religious sense, but in the sense of, you know, how they might hold a little esteem to white people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Once again, yeah, they asked him to do it. Why not reach out to a black director?
They didn't want to do it. I mean, again, this is their story. I don't know.
There we go. So
Right, their story.
That's their story. Yeah, because I sure did. I thought about this because you're right. That was a great example, and I was like, and they were saying.
but even then, as a man, as this white man, he could say no. I bet you he ain't even think to say no.
No, he's not gonna think. But that part,
You know what I'm saying? He could turn that down and be like, "Hey, this is not my story to tell. The story needs to come from somebody within the black community. They need to tell this story, and in particular, it needs to be a black woman that tells this story."
But I think that alone, right? Because that alone, where, and it's not a privilege. I won't put it. It feels like it's under the umbrella of privilege, or like a facet of it, where it's kind of the understanding of not knowing what you did you shouldn't have done, or not knowing that you thought this was wrong. Because when I hear about like this book and this example of this white man, first person now is crazy. So the first person of this black woman's story, and he's like, I don't understand the problem. And it's like, how do I put it? It's like, that in itself is like a privilege of being, I shouldn't say privilege, but it's under the umbrella of a privilege of having access to basically do whatever. And then it's like, well, I don't understand why people have a problem. Like, totally oblivious. I mean, that's like, That must feel nice because not to even understand why this is a problem. And then when we like read further in the book, this guy was like, yeah, I did my first novel. Everybody read it. So he don't see no problem with none of this. He's like, what's the problem? Child, I don't know. That's hilarious to me. That's hilarious.
I just think it's on par with our society, period. I mean, these jokers been telling our history or not telling the, trying to tell our history, but based off of, their way of morphing it, their way of structuring it. I mean, when you think about it, we don't, look at the school systems
Mm-hmm.
here in this country, right? For the most part, you don't learn about Black history. And when you do, it's when during February, and it's only about a specific number of people. It's like it's a quota.
Yeah.
You can only learn about these 10, 20 people during this month, and then that's it. That's the only thing that we're going to teach you in this history.
You're right.
Same could be said right here. You know what I'm saying? So if you can do all that and been doing all that, and you see it, yeah, it's a double-edged sword because number one, you're comfortable in doing it because you see your people do it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, you don't see nothing wrong with it because your people don't see nothing wrong with it. Your community don't see nothing wrong with it. So you don't get it. You're totally just completely, just a continuing, you're basically just another representation of your community and how your community treats another community's history.
No, you're right. That's that's a good point because you're right. During Black History, the main person we learn about is Martin Luther King, and it's because it was nonviolent. Not to mention that it wasn't nonviolent what they were going through during that time.
Straight violence.
Right, straight violence. But it's, hey, let's preach nonviolence over here because it's rare that we have a lot of Black histories with Malcolm X. If my memory serves me correctly.
That's true.
Toya, we hear you. But as she moves on and talks about more about the book, she says she brings up examples of talking about race. She says even when we explicitly attempted to talk about race, and this is about going back to the Duke Divinity School, she says the white colleagues shut the conversation down because they couldn't bear the discomfort. For example, that same year, a white male organizational consultant conducted focus groups among the students, faculty, and staff and determined that the school's racial climate was hostile. But when the consultant presented his data to the faculty and even shared verbatim quotes from his interviews, the predominantly white faculty refused to own up to his race problem. One white female faculty member and alumnus shook her head and said, "This can't be right. These students don't really understand how to appreciate this school. I mean, I graduated from here not so long ago and I had a great experience. The students who participated in the assessment just really seemed negative to me." I don't think I'm going to finish because these folks. So another example, she says, another white female colleague and alumnus protested, "I don't even recognize the school they're describing. I think their cynicism is clouding their judgment. In fact, I know a Black student who loves it here." This desired oblivious nature is hilarious. I'm sorry. She says, so another example is a white male faculty member offered, "The data must be wrong. I've been a faculty member here for decades, and this institution isn't perfect, but it sure has been good to me. I don't believe that it's been so terrible to these Black faculty and staff. There's no way." But this is the kind of stuff I like to hear about, though. But she brings up, and she kind of moves into this other point, which I thought was really interesting. And I'm on page 139. She says, "As long as we think that white male God only exists in the most explicitly white supremacist and patriarchal spaces, we will never see that he is hiding in plain sight in institutions, spiritualities, neoliberalism, and perhaps most covertly in white women." Here we go. Here we go. Before I move on to that, did anybody want to chime in before I start moving into white femininity?
It's once again going back to kind of like, I don't know if she's surprised by the response that she got, but they're just staying on par with what this guy just did.
Mm-hmm.
Now you all are now you all are looking black people in their face and trying to tell them about the experiences of other black people at the same university that you all work with, as if they aren't black themselves and have their own experiences to tell.
That's hilarious.
You know what I'm saying? And it's just like, also, but once again, look at the environment that you are in. This is not surprising. Having, you know what I'm saying? You should have seen a colleague eventually pulling this move. Why not? How many more examples do you need in American history to actually see that, yes, this will happen?
Yeah. Man, that kind of sucks. But you're right. I mean, this is like a microcosm of the world we see every day, where black thought or black feelings are not even taken seriously. If it's not, everything is perfect. You know, we see that every day. Yeah, that I think that's what's so funny. It's like, what, like you said, you know, we're not even given the benefit of the doubt to these students or faculty that what they're saying is of any merit. Like, what? I didn't have that experience. Are you kidding? I don't think this is right. This data can't be right. It's like, what? Okay.
What are you talking about?
Like,
all right.
Kanisha
just said that she loves it here and it's wonderful. What are you talking about? I literally, once again, not surprising.
Nice. Well, she being Dr. Chris, she goes into, she talks about the Black Madonna of Orcival. And she talks about how she was hesitant to visit her. She said, because I knew that after 1,000 years of being black, she had undergone mid-20th century renovation and restoration process that whitened her skin. I knew from photos that her once gorgeous melanated skin was now ghastly beigeous pink. The incredible Black Madonna of Orcival now appears to be a white woman. And this is where she kind of goes into white male God's secret weapon, which is white femininity. She says that she brings the parallel of this whitewashed Black Madonna. She says, out of all the Black Madonnas, she was the most heavenly guarded of all Black Madonnas. She says, I'll say that again. The whitened Black Madonna is more protected than the most vulnerable Black Madonnas. If that ain't a metaphor for how white femininity is valued over Black femininity, I don't know what is. But then she goes into the where she left off as far as the faculty and Duck Dynasty of Duke Divinity, and she says, "Let's see where we left off when it was finally getting real between black and white faculty. That's right, my black female colleagues had signed their protests with 'Hands up, don't shoot,' and 'I can't breathe.' Lord have mercy. Not surprisingly, the petulant white men didn't like that. I mean, how dare we offend their delicate liberal intellectual sensibilities by grouping them with racist cops and white nationalists? Couldn't we see that they're the good guys? It got ugly, and eventually one white female colleague who calls herself a feminist entered the fray. But rather than speaking out on behalf of black women, she essentially said, 'Please remember that I'm battling chronic illness. You all are my family, and I need everyone to stop fighting and be nice to each other so I can feel safe here.' She was uncomfortable and she was getting what she needed, so she shut down the conflict. But this wasn't just your garden variety white defensiveness like the white faculty had displayed in response to the consultant's data. This white feminist weaponized her white femininity using her individual, non-systemic vulnerability to silence and delegitimize our black femininity and systemic pain. Her tactic worked. Though they had been persistently ignored the black woman's pain, all the white men immediately responded to the white woman's pain and complied with her request to stop fighting. Consequently, the conflict that was just starting to get real abruptly ceased. In the end, white male God continued to flourish at Duke Divinity School. Yeah, that makes that makes sense. That makes sense. Anybody, before I move off into this other part of the chapter, anybody had anything to comment on before I move to the march?
I mean, just real quick, like, the way her coworkers were having to sign their emails and stuff like that. Dang. I mean, I would hate to have to, be in a work environment like that. When you already got so much to deal with at work. Now I got to deal with this as well too.
Yeah,
I that just, just reading that alone, just kind of just, yeah,
that is a lot.
man,
Right.
irked me.
That's a good point.
And it seemed like that happened on a regular basis. Like it was kind of common
Mm.
for those email alerts to come through because she even spoke about like when the black colleagues wrote a book, no one said anything. There were no accolades given.
You're right.
So it was a consistent thing that was going on.
That's a good point. You're right.
Yeah, an unhealthy work environment.
Man,
Yeah, not at all. But again, we're at Duke. So
Duke Divinity.
Yep.
Man, it's a shame that we're not even surprised by this toxic
it
work
it, it,
environment.
it really is that it is disheartening to like not be surprised by the actions of those that were, that were taken out.
You're right. You're right. She also goes into her, I guess, realization when they go to the march. So we remember right after Donald Trump was elected, there was the inaugural Women's March. She said that they woke up around 3:30 on the day of the election. Durham, North Carolina, is about a 5-hour drive from Washington. And when they get there with her black woman students, she said one of them was like, "This isn't a protest." One of the students said, and with dismay, "This is like a pride parade." And he said it did have a pride parade vibe. It had more of a celebratory and camaraderie vibe than a revolutionary vibe. If we witnessed any anger, it was from one of the white feminist variety. And so the black women, I'm sorry, because I keep picturing this small group of black women, and they're chanting. So he said, as an attempt to turn the parade into actual march, our little group of 6 black women decided to start a Black Lives Matter chant. Lord, Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter. We call out in harmony. Crickets. So,
Like, what was y'all expecting? What was y'all expecting? No, for real. What were you all expecting?
she expected the chant. She said they're gonna turn it up. That's what that's what they said. They said the Black Lives Matter. We finna get this party started, like the electric slide, and that's what the point was. And they heard crickets. That's what happened. Good grief. She also says we kept trying to get a Black Lives Matter chant going, but no one ever joined in. But she brings us up to say about this sociologist called Jesse Daniels confirms, and this is a good point, to the extent that liberal feminism articulates a limited version of gender equality without challenging racial inequality, then white feminism is not inconsistent with white supremacy. Without an explicit challenge to racism, white feminism is easily grafted into white supremacy and useful for arguing for equality for white women within a white supremacist context. And I thought that was interesting. Before I move on to the next part of the chapter, did anybody have anything to add to it?
Nah, not for me.
I didn't.
Cool, cool, cool.
Neither did I.
Cool, cool, cool. So, wrapping this up, because I think we only have a little bit left to go here. She starts off by talking about God of white women. She says, like my white male colleague who, in this book, or in his book, eagerly colonized the story and embodied the voice of a black woman, white male God can colonize any institution, person, idea, or culture. But many white women are so focused on the problem of patriarchy and how white male God inhabits patriarchy that they can't see that white male God inhabits white women too. I would actually piggyback off that to say I believe so. A lot of them can see it; they just don't care. It's not a burden to them. What's a burden to them is patriarchy, but not white supremacy. But I thought that was just me. What did you guys think?
The same.
Mm.
Doesn't impact them. What's gonna, you know what I'm saying? And to tell you the truth, have they really been an ally
Girl,
to the black community,
girl.
or have they benefited from the actions of the black community? Hence, things that were maybe promised or
Civil
maybe we were
rights.
blamed for, and we
Mm-hmm.
necessarily didn't get any benefits or anything from this
Mm-hmm.
whatsoever. But we're the face of it.
Mm-hmm. Civil rights for one. I mean, that included everybody. That was the whole point. That was the whole point of the civil rights movement.
Everybody,
Yeah,
basically everybody that was, and I'll
not a
even
white
say
man.
just
Mm-hmm.
or just non-white. Period. You know what I mean? I think
Mm-hmm.
that, I mean, not to say that definitely white women benefited, but uh, you know, it's so many that benefited from that movement
Mm-hmm.
that we see today. But just sticking with, you know, white women, once again, the history of this country, it's pretty much, kind of like I guess you can go back to maybe, okay, we'll stick with the civil rights movement. We have pictures of freedom fighters, right?
Mm-hmm.
How many of those freedom fighters were white women? Technically, how many freedom fighters did you have total?
No, I mean, you had total.
Wasn't that many.
No.
And those that did participate, they faced some of them faced death, just like black people that were facing having to fight civil rights every single day,
Yeah.
whether they wanted to or not.
Correct.
So when you tell me that you went to Washington and you thought everybody was going to be, no, boo, no, these folks are not your allies. All right.
Mm-hmm. You ain't kidding. There's a lot of people who died and stuff over that.
All right. Instead of allies, y'all need to break it down to all lies
Oops.
and read
Oops.
between the lines.
All
All right.
lies. All lies
I'm
matter.
telling you, all lines, okay? And read between them damn lines for real. Read your history a little bit better.
Well, she actually goes into this scholar and philosopher, and it kind of ties into exactly what you saying, Sheen. I'm on page 145. She says, "You see, the actions of both my white male colleague and white women I've encountered are fueled by the same pillar of whiteness, ontological expansiveness." She says the race scholar and philosopher Shannon Sullivan defines ontological expansiveness as the way that white people tend to act and think as if all spaces or otherwise are or should be available for them to move in and out of as they wish. She says, I nicknamed it white sprawl because, like suburban sprawl, it is driven by thoughtless expansion and extraction with very little concern for the well-being of the indigenous beings who inhabit that space. Wow, I like that one though. I like that one. But to tie up this chapter, because we're almost at the end, she kind of goes back to the sacred black feminine, and she says, regardless of our racial identity, in order to experience the fullness of her transformative love, we must get into the formation around her unapologetic blackness, but we do not have to do this healing work on our own. She who is unapologetically black empowers us all beyond mere beliefs and into transformative action. She is loving in action, and she is simply waiting for us to say yes. I think I kind of jumped too much too far, but to kind of round out where she was going with all of this was about ending with the sacred black feminine. And that wraps up that chapter 10. Ladies, that was kind of a mouthful. Is there anything that you guys wanted to touch on? I know, Toy, you kind of went in and out, so feel free if there's something that you wanted to touch on that we may not have talked about, or we just didn't hear you, so feel free for that. Did we lose you again, Toya? It's possible. It's possible.
It is, yeah.
Yeah. Well, ladies, did any of you have anything to say before I wrap this up?
No, I don't.
Nothing for me.
Nothing for me.
Well, let's see. We are almost at the end of this book. Let's see. What'd you say, Toya? I'm sorry. Nope. Okay.
Me.
I think you're going in and out, boo boo. Well, all that to say is that you're right. We got 11 and 12, and then like acknowledgments. And I think that's going to be the end of it. And then the notes. So, Toya takes me back some nothing. Anyway, so we got 11 and 12. And then we're going to be finished. And the acknowledgments, I think we can wrap this up next week. And I appreciate everybody's time. Thank you for everything. And if you have any comments, please put it in the chat bar or in the comments and let us know what you think. All right. You guys have a good night. Thank you, ladies.
Thanks.
Thanks. Y'all have a great week.